Okay, guys. Hi. Okay, today we would start with the CSS and we'll be doing some introduction to CSS today. Like I said before, we started with HTML, which is the how we define the structure of our websites. And now we have to move on to styling those websites to make it look a little bit better. So the way we style is by using, one of the ways we style websites is by using the CSS. And the full meaning of CSS, like I said before, is cascading style sheets. So, yeah, so cascading style sheets, like the meaning of CSS actually comes from the name. Cascade. What do we mean by cascading? It means it cascades or it comes from all the way from the top up to the bottom. So it starts from the most general CSS that we define all the way down to the most definitive ones. Now, what does that mean? It means that you can define styles for a particular HTML element, and you can continue adding styles, but you need to keep at the back of your mind that whatever you add first cascades down. So whatever you add last is going to be the most definitive. That means whatever you add first will be general styles, then less general, and then to the most definitive. So that's the way CSS works. A lot of people don't know this. When they start defining their CSS styling, they start wondering what's going on. Something is not right because that principle is not there. They forgot that principle of cascading. It cascades. So whatever you define on top is still affecting every other thing that you're adding that styles on top. You just have to be mindful of that. And you will see the meaning of this more when we start using CSS. Now, what about the style sheets? The style sheet is what gives the design, the beauty to our websites. So we need that sheet to be able to get the exact design that we want in our websites. And we need to learn how to define those designs, how to define those styles by learning how to write CSS code. So we've learned how to write HTML. CSS is a little bit different, but it works together with the HTML, and we'll see how that is being done. Now, it's not just CSS that we use to style websites. There are other style sheets that we use. One of them is called SAS, Syntactically Awesome Style Sheets. Why is this not popular at this level? When I say at this level, I mean at the foundation level where you guys are right now, is that the foundation of every other style sheet is cascading, is the CSS. So it was after CSS had been defined and people have used it for several years that some people came up with, okay, this looks like it's too static. We need to find a way to make CSS dynamic. That's when some people came up with the idea of SAS. So SAS worked with some other frameworks that came out after JavaScript so that styling can work together with JavaScript, not just together with HTML. You are not going to be learning that in this class. The good thing is that everybody that I know who have learned SAS on their own, because once you have that background of CSS, you would be able to handle SAS on your own. Now there's linear CSS. The same way some people came up with SAS, some other guys sat down and feel like, well, SAS is too heavy. When they write SAS and when they complete their code and they use SAS, when they deploy, it takes more space in the server. And they feel like, well, there are a lot of things that we deploy to the server that are not actually needed, but they form part of the code. How can we make it lighter? Then they come up with less. So they write less to reduce the size of the code. But at the end of the day, all of them does the same job. It's all about styling the website. Now, what you prefer, what you use would depend on what you prefer at the end of the day. So when internet came up several years ago and there was websites, the very first website that was designed, this is it. And this is how it looks. So it was just pure HTML, no CSS, no styling. And they were using it. Everybody was happy. It has links. You can do tables, you can write bullet points and all that. And it was okay. Everybody was liking it. And if you use internet maybe around 2001, 2000. I'm sure you'll be familiar with this. So it's not as if there was no style. Of course, there is still style somewhere in the background. Of course, that's why you can see something that looks like Times New Roman text. That's why you can differentiate where it stops and all that, spaces in between. There's still some default styling behind the scene, but we don't call it style because it just looks like the most default, the barest minimum. But then some people started looking like, okay, we have a website. Can't we just make it look better? And that was the guy that wrote this website was in IBM, and one of the staff of IBM sent him an email like, hey, we now have a website, people like it, can we just make it better? And it was like, there's nothing we can do about it. This is the best we can have. And the guy was like, no, we should be able to make it better. Then they came up with something. So the group of web designers at that time, they came together and create what is called HTML 3.2. So they created a reference specification that we can still make this look a little bit better than what it is. So what did they do? They added some styles inside the HTML. It makes the code look bogus. So you just want, if like, for example, you just want to create a web page that just talked about yourself, you end up writing like 3,000 lines of code to write that because you want to style it. Well, they were using it, W3 School, they published it through W3 School. They were using it and everybody feel cool. But then they feel like, well, how can we make it better again? They started thinking. I'm just trying to give you guys background of how CSS came about. So that time they started defining something like fonts. I'm sure you have never seen this before. They started defining elements like fonts where they can kind of style the fonts to make it look better. They started defining something like other things like face, like color, like size, and other things like centering a div and all that. But then it keeps evolving. As you know, everything keeps evolving. And this was okay at that time until W3 School came up again and feel like, okay, at this point, we are not going to continue writing 1 million lines of code because we want to build a simple website. There must be a better way. Then W3 School came up with CSS1, Cascading Style Sheet 1, which is what we are starting with, although we are starting with CSS3, but this was how it began. So they came up with CSS1. At that time, they were writing CSS code itself, different from the HTML that we know, and it was looking a little bit better. If you look at what I just showed here, you would see that a lot of these have been deprecated. Deprecated in software means it's no more in use. So this was what they were using before, but right now, although you can still find them, if you still write them, they would work, but it is no more in use. They have been deprecated. So nobody should use all these elements as of today. Now, when they came up with CSS1, they started writing CSS5. And the idea of CSS is that instead of writing the style code inside the HTML, why can't we have a separate file that will write the CSS code, and then we'll be able to link that to the HTML file. That way, there will be separation of concern. Separation of concern means let HTML do HTML work. Let's have a CSS file that does styling work so that they will not be mixed up in between the two. That way, if we are on a team, one person can be writing the HTML while the other person will be writing the CSS. Then you can share the work. Apart from that, the files will be lesser. They won't be as heavy as it was when they did HTML3. Okay, so yeah, so that was how the story of CSS came up. And then as of today, we have what is known as CSS3. So it has evolved from CSS1 to CSS2, and now today CSS3. The most current CSS style is CSS3, and that's what we're going to be learning. So how do you add CSS to files? And what do they actually do? Now, I'll show you a typical example of a website. This is a website, very simple website, my website, and it has some links. The links are home, about, contact. If you click on home, it should go to home. If you click on about, just like what you know about links. Right now, it's not linked to anything, just for you to see. Now, this is a purely HTML site. There is no CSS and nothing. Now, by the time you add CSS to this file, let's see what it looks like. It looks like, oh, you know what it look like, oh, site not available again. You see what we are saying now? That's what we're just discussing, right? Okay, wait. We need that site to demonstrate what CSS looks like. And now it doesn't want to show. No, you must show. What's wrong? All right, so this is not going to show. I don't know why it's broken. I'll find out why this is broken. I just want to show you how a website transforms from when it has just the HTML and when you now add the CSS. Unfortunately, the site I prepared for this is not going to work. We'll come back to that later. So now, how do you add CSS to your website? There are 3 ways to add CSS to your website. One of the ways is called an inline method. So inline method means you are going to be writing, sorry, I need to test I have one writing pad that will make it easy for me than using mouse to write all the time. Hopefully it works. If it doesn't work, then nothing wants to work today. We'll all go for Father's Day. Abby? You work, or if you don't work. Like, wow. Okay. Looks like this one wants to work. Okay. Oh, wow.
Wow.
Are you not using that thing as a thing?
Guys, time don't go. I'll be using my mouse like that. Okay, so let me erase this one. So one of the methods we use to add CSS to our file, it's called an inline style. Now, what does inline style means? It means every CSS you're going to be writing, for example, maybe you just have a single line of code that you just want to write, you just want to add a style to. Of course, you can do that by inline method. So you're going to have your CSS tag. Let's say maybe it's an H1 tag, and or whatever the kind of tag you have. Then you will have this attribute called style equals to, then you write your CSS code here. It's not going to be CSS like I wrote here, but what this means is that you're going to write your CSS code in between these double quotes. So this way, whatever style CSS code you write in here would apply to that particular line of code where it is being added in line. So which means you're writing it inside the line of code that you have. That's one method. Another method is called internal method. The internal method is that you're going to define the style tag in the heading or in the head of your website. And in between the opening and the closing style tag, you will have your CSS code. So you define all the CSS codes in there. You just have an opening style, a closing style. This is supposed to have this. Sorry about that. And then you have your CSS code in between. That's called internal. Now, the last one is called external. External means you are going to have a separate file where you write all your styles. That file is going to be called something like style.css. Remember, .css. When we were writing HTML code, we were writing something .html. So now, when you now want to write a file for CSS, it's going to be something .css. So because this is external, it means we are referring to a separate file and we're bringing it inside our HTML code. That's the way you link them together. Now, how do you now link them? You're going to have a link tag that carries an href attribute, and you define your href to be the name of the file where the CSS code is being written. Just the same way when you were linking two HTML pages together. You remember we were using, although we were not using link, but we were using something else like anchor tag, and the anchor tag carries an href attribute, just like this one. And then we define the name of the HTML file we were bringing at that time, if you remember again. But now, because it is CSS, we will be using what is called a link. And this link is going to live inside the head of our HTML. You remember last week, we did HTML boilerplate. So inside the head of that boilerplate, you're going to have a link tag that carries an href attribute with a style, with the name of this CSS file that you have created. So these are the three methods by which we add CSS. Now, somebody would ask, so which one is preferable? Why do we have three? Which one should we use? Yes, that's a good question if you're already asking in your mind. When I was on the inline, remember I said, if you want to style a single line of code. So let's say, for example, you have an H1 element or H2 or whatever element or paragraph element, and you just want to style that paragraph element alone, then you can have an inline. The internal, if you just want to style a single block of code, let's say there's a particular block of code that you just want to attach the same style into, then you can use this one. But when you have a full-blown page that has different elements on that page, and you want to attach different styles to different elements, you cannot start using inline and be attaching styles to each of the line. No. You cannot start defining different code for different blocks. No. What you would do is that you would write all the CSS code in a single file, a separate file, and then link it to your HTML file. That way, it would attach to every of the elements on that page. Now, how do you start writing that? So let's talk about the inline.
Quick question.
Let's say you want to add an inline code, inline style to, for example, an H1. The HTML you see here means it doesn't have to be the HTML itself.
Okay, I don't.
Let's say you want to add a background of blue to. Sorry, I'm using blue because I belong to the Bala Blue community. Thank you. I know you are.
Can you slow down? Can you slow
down?
My this thing.
Okay. Can we slow down? You're going too fast. First of all, we've been trying to call your attention since, and looks like you have just been.
That is bad.
You've been in your own zone. So okay, so let's go back one step before we continue to move to the next page.
That's very bad. I didn't know.
Okay.
Let's go back.
Let's go back.
And you guys, they are recording. You should use your chat function. You know, shouting, teacher, what's going on?
We have been calling you, sis. Can you hear us?
Question.
Quick question. So when it comes to CSS, assuming that the way we've been writing HTML all along, that's the same way we'll be writing codes for CSS on its own. It's not like we'll be, let's say we are writing HTML, we cannot incorporate both in the same code.
Of course you can. That's what I was trying to explain here. Okay, so I'll go back to this point.
Yeah.
If you want to add your CSS code inside your HTML, okay, if that code, that HTML is just like a single line that you want to attach a style to, just a line, you can use an inline style. So you just bring in style attributes equals to, you write your CSS code inside that double quote. That's for a single line.
Okay, so now, it's CSS code. So when you say CSS code, is it
you have not learned CSS code.
Okay.
I'm just using that as a reference right now. We are going to learn writing CSS code. What we are doing right now is, how do you even add the CSS code into your HTML? That's what I'm explaining right now.
All right.
How we are going to write the CSS, we'll get to that.
Question two.
Yeah.
Hang on. So for the inline style, are we using the opening tag or the closing tag? Or from what you wrote here, this is the closing tag.
This is not the closing tag. I only use an example of a self-closing tag. This is a self-closing tag. It closes itself. It could have been, I could have used an H1 tag and write something like content and close the H1, right? And then inside here is where you are going to have your style attribute. So inside the opening tag, let me write it better. If it is H1, then you're going to have style equals double quotes, write your CSS. It's hard to use mouse to write not something. No. You write your content and then you close the HTML. So the style is going to be inside the opening tag, inside of the opening tag. Okay? Does it look good? That's why I brought this my writing part today. I know I'm going to do a lot of writing, and this mouse is going to winch me. Let me try use my writing pad, please. It will make it easier to write with pad. You will just sit down here since I've not been using it, and now it's giving me headache to use. Come on. It's too fast. I think I need to set the sensitivity.
Which kind of pad?
This is my baby. I think I'll set the sensitivity too fast. That no, it's not going to meet our idiot. Okay, guys. Yeah, sorry. I'm gonna when we are on break, I will set this pad. I like to write with it because it makes my handwriting more legible. So what I'm saying is, if you are to the lay by, or this Father's Day something is going to cost Wahala today. So these guys did not join this class. Hey, basically. Oh, Jonah. Okay, so what I'm explaining is, let's say you want to add that style to an H1 tag. So you have your H1, I'm going to write slowly so that it will make sense. You're going to write your style equals, then you write your CSS code, you close that opening tag, then write your content. My website, and then close it, H1. This is an inline style. So the style is going to be inside of the opening tag. So for this one, I only used a self-closing tag. Okay, does that answer your question, Julie?
Yeah, definitely.
Perfect. Did I answer your question?
Yeah. Yeah, I get the idea now, because all along I was thinking, it's just CSS, so now I understand that we have to write a code of its own before we put that code in there. Thank you.
We are going to write the CSS code itself. We'll get there. That's what I was almost getting to. So thank you. Thanks for bringing. If I think I need to disconnect this external.
Somebody else raising up your hand, though.
Wait. No, don't worry. I will be hearing you now when you talk. The external speaker is the one that is causing the bala blue. I'll disconnect it. I just like to hear. Is someone talking? Jem. I can't hear again. Somebody should talk now, please. Basically, I cannot hear anybody. I want to our class here. They are somewhere on Sasiwa over in Towa. I can't hear anything though. Okay, wait. Interesting.
So you know they hear anybody like this.
Nope.
Okay, I can hear now. Wait, I'll disconnect it again. Okay. Then I have to stick to the external speaker. Okay. Then I have to stick to the external speaker. Don't worry, we'll solve this problem.
Can you hear me?
This is really bad.
I think like when you disconnect the speaker, you need to go into Zoom and select the speaker you want to be hearing from or something
That's
like that.
true. Let me see. Let me even use Zoom to select it right now. Because this thing is going to injure me. For this thing.
Well, I
Where
do.
is Zoom? Ah, okay, speaker. Yeah, it's still selecting this. That's why. So let's use the MacBook Pro speaker. Yes. Now,
Okay.
yeah, now I can hear everybody.
Awesome.
Thank you. Awesome.
You need to start paying me for this class report.
Let me disconnect this where they draw, where they cause wahala. Okay.
Okay. So my question. Is this like just for illustration's sake, or because I know H1 tag is not necessarily self-closing.
Yeah, H1 tag cannot self-close. Okay,
right?
So get me right.
But this is going to be, oh, okay, you do have a H1 at the end there.
Yeah, there's a closing H1 tag here.
Inside. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other question, guys? Who has questions? Bob, you have questions, right?
Not really.
Not really. Okay. Okay.
Now, Ogalatas.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, my own question is, if you look at this example you gave us as against the inline thing that you came with in your notes, this thing has disappeared though.
What's that?
Good. Now, this H1 is representing the tag style CSS. So are you now saying that after we now have that CSS is when we would now impute what we want to add there, like you did with my website?
No. Okay, right now.
This is an instruction.
This thing I wrote here. This thing that I wrote CSS. What that indicates is that write your CSS code in here. This CSS is not a code. It's just like I use it to indicate that after you write your style opening tag, before your closing tag, you are going to write all your CSS code in between the opening and the closing tag. For this one, if you're writing your style inline, the moment you have your tag, let's say you have a self-closing tag. For example, let's say this is an image tag. You know, image tag is a self-closing tag, right? And you want to style that image. You already have all other attributes like source equals something. You define the source, you define the alts. Then you want to style that image. And you want to style it inline. You are going to add another attribute called style. And then you now write inverted code and then define all your style in here. The style is not the word CSS. This is just an indication that all your CSS code goes in between these two quotes. Don't worry, we'll do examples.
I get that.
So now let's do examples. Let's start looking at examples, then it will become clearer. So this is an example of an inline style. Now, let's say you have an HTML H1 tag. That's what I was explaining over there. Let's say you have an H1 tag, H1 element, sorry. H1 element that has an opening and a closing H1. I use the word HTML to indicate that this can be any type of HTML tag. It could be H1, it could be H2, it could be paragraph, it could be any type of HTML tag that you know, or HTML elements that you know. So if you want to style it inline, you're going to define an attribute called style. Now, when you define that style, let's say for this particular one, you want to style the background of the page and you want to have a blue color in the background. This is now CSS code. This is a CSS code now. So you are telling the browser, render the background and paint it blue for me. Okay? So you're saying background color, look at how the CSS code is being written. It is just normal English, background, and then there's going to be a colon and define blue. Don't make a mistake, because a lot of you would make it, no doubt, but then I'm telling you ahead, don't make a mistake of changing this to equal sign, because it's not going to work. It must be a colon sign. Now, it's going to be background, colon, there will be a space, and then you define the color you want to add. Blue, as simple as that. When you run this on a code, this is what you get. You're going to get the entire page to be blue. That's what CSS does for you. So what you have done is that you have been able to render an HTML element and you painted the background to be blue. That's it. This is CSS. Any question on this one before I continue to the next one?
Sorry, and just as we have, so this is some, I don't know how to explain this.
Go on. Say it anyhow.
Style is the attribute.
Mm-hmm.
The CSS thing.
The definition is the CSS. The style and the attribute and the definition or the value. The style is the attribute. The value is the CSS code.
Okay.
Okay. And the way you define the CSS code is that you are going to define what you want to style first. In this case, we want to style the background. It could be any other thing, and you will see. In this case, we want to style the background. And how do we want to style it? We just want to paint it blue. Okay? That is how this is defined. And remember, we are doing inline. So if you're doing inline, this is something that you're going to be doing. Now, let's look at if it is not inline, if it is internal. So internal is a bit different. Now, what's the difference here? Remember the structure of our HTML boilerplate. It's being wrapped, when I use the analogy of an hamburger, everything you have on that code is being wrapped inside an opening and a closing HTML tag, remember. And inside that, we have an head tag. That head is where you define a lot of metadata, like I said, like the title of your website and some other things. That's the same place that you're going to add your style code if you're writing internal style, internal CSS for your website. So in this case, if you want to write, if you want to write internal code or internal style for this website, you're going to define the opening and closing tag of style. So you're going to have style element opening and style element closing. Now, inside that style, you would have something like this. In this case, we want to style the background to be red. So you're going to target the HTML. When you target HTML, you are targeting the entire page of that website. I'll say that again. When you target the word HTML, whatever style you put inside that HTML, you are adding that style to the entire page of that website. Because on a website, this HTML you see here that wraps everything, it is called the roots. Note that, guys, it is important. It is called the roots. So the root element of a website is the HTML elements. So whenever you add a style to the HTML element, you're adding that style to the root elements. And that root is going to have whatever style you add in there. So for this case, look at how an internal CSS is written. You target your elements. In this case, you are targeting HTML. You have an opening curly braces and a closing curly braces. Inside the opening and the closing curly braces, you define your CSS. So in this case, we are only defining the background. And we're saying style the background in the color of red. When you run that, you have a red background. So this is going to be the entire web page. The entire web page would have a color of red if you're targeting the background of an HTML element. Any questions, guys?
Ogalatas.
Yes.
Now, the thing is, you said this HTML, the first one is the root. Now, this yellow HTML we have here, this yellow HTML we have before the background, which work is it doing again? Since we already have one HTML that is the root, that place is quite confusing.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, So the HTML we define here is the HTML element of that website. And that is part of the HTML code. So remember, here we are having two different types of code. We are having our HTML code, and now we are adding a CSS code inside an HTML code, internal. The one we define here is the one that defines the page, the structure of the page. The one we brought up here, the yellow one, is the one that targets an element in that page. So when you are writing your CSS code, let me say it this way. When you're writing your CSS code, remember on a single page of a website, you have different elements. You can have P tag, you can have H1, you can have H2, you can have H3. Oh God.
Sorry, sir.
You can have as many as possible elements on your page. Now, how do you determine which of those elements you want to style? Let's say you have P1, you have H1, H2, and all of them, but you want to style them differently. How do you determine which one takes blue, which one takes red, which one takes green, which ones go big, which one goes small? The way you determine it is you must target those elements, and targeting them means you must specify them here. But in this case, we are targeting the entire page, which is why that's why we are targeting the root. The root is HTML. This one can be H1. We can just say, okay, target an H1 for me on this page.
I now get it now, sir.
Then it will not be, you will not see this red on the entire page. It will now be a red on an H1 element on that page. That's the only thing that will go red. Don't worry, you will see that when we go forward. But just
thank you, sir.
Try to understand it right now. Right now, we are only targeting the entire HTML roots of the page. That means we are saying whatever I define here, apply it to the entire page. If I change this to an H1, I'm saying that apply this red background color to an H1 element you find on the page. So it is the job of the browser to look for that element and apply that style. You will see that in action. Now, external. How do we add an external style sheet to our page? And this is what you're going to be doing 99.9999999% of the time when you write your code. Okay? I am not saying that you're not going to be doing the other two. Once in a while, occasionally, there might be a reason for you to do an inline styling or an internal styling. But on a large-scale production code that you and I are going to be writing as we progress, this is what we are going to be doing. We'll be doing external style sheets, external styling, meaning that we're going to be reading now. These things are frustrating my life here today, oh God. So you're going to be having a file that is your HTML file. In this case, it could be index.html or something.html, like we have been having before. Is somebody talking? Okay, no. All right. And you are going to be having another file that will be called styles.css. It could be anything. I'm just using the word styles, but it must have this, what do we call this again? Remind me, guys. What do we call this? Can anybody?
File extension.
Thank you. You must have this extension of CSS. So styles.css. Now, these are going to be two different files. Index.html, which is our HTML file, and then our CSS file, which is now going to be styles.css in this case. So now, how do you now link these two files together to attach the style to that page? Now, let's go back. The same way we have in an internal. Do you remember our HTML boilerplate? It starts with an HTML opening and closing tag. Now, inside the head, instead of having a style element, in this case, because it is not internal, it is external, you would have a link element. Okay? When you have your link elements, that's where you're going to define your style sheets. Now, how do we define style sheets? It comes with two attributes. The first attribute is the relation attribute. And the relation attribute is written as REL. This REL means relation. What that means is, what is the relationship between the file you want to bring in and this code? The relationship is that what I'm bringing in is a style sheet. You must define this. If you don't define this, it will not work. So when you define your relationship, then you define your href. The href is where is the reference for that file? Tell me the reference so that I can look for it, because the browser must look for the reference. Then you style it, you would define it depending on where your CSS file is located. You remember we've done this before. Wherever your CSS is, we determine the path to that file. So right now we are assuming that the CSS file is in the same directory, and we are defining it as /style.css. So two attributes are here. The first attribute is the relationship that shows what is the connection between what you want to reference and this current file. The relationship is that I am referencing a style sheet, because you can actually reference something else. Then where is the file? You define that in your href attributes. So there will be a link, which is a self-closing tag, and then you define the relationship and the href. When you do it this way, then you go and write that your CSS file, which in this case it's style.css. And we are targeting something. What are we targeting? We are targeting the root in this example. The root, because this is the root, HTML. So whatever we apply to this root applies to the entire page. And we are saying, style this background of the page, or the background of this page, in green. And then you have a green when you run your code. So what we've been able to achieve here is that we have our HTML file like we used to have it. And now we wrote a CSS file where we have a very simple code, and we are targeting something. We targeted HTML. We can, like I said, remember, we can target something. We can target H1. Just know that whatever you target is the only thing that will have this style. But if you want to target the entire page, then you target HTML. Okay? And when you do that and run the code, if there is no error and no bug, you will see your style come up immediately. Any questions, guys, before we go and do a hands-on? We are going to do a hands-on now.
So in this situation, if we target say H1, right? Do we now need to go into the CSS, the HTML file, and go to the specific H1 we're talking about? Or do we still down put and sort of relate it there? Or do we still now put it inside the boilerplate?
Yes. So remember, let's say on this page, you have an H1 element. The H1 element is going to be inside your body. So after the head, there will be body, right? Remember.
Right.
So, and in between the opening and the closing element of the body is where you're going to have your H1, remember, right?
Right.
Then you have your content, and then you close your H1 before you now have this closing HTML tag, okay? And now, if that is the element you want to target, your style, your link to the style is still going to live in the head. It's never going to leave the head.
Mm-hmm.
The only difference here is that you are going to target H1, and then the browser will look for any H1 element in this web page, in this HTML. If there are 20 H1 elements, it will apply that style to all of them. As long as they are H1 elements. If you target H2 and you have a lot of H2 elements in that page, and you have been able to reference your style in the head like this, the browser will look for every H2 element on that page and apply whatever style you have defined here onto those H2 elements. The same way, if you have paragraphs on this page and you say, okay, you target paragraph, instead of HTML, you target paragraph here, and then you define background, green, it would apply a green background color to every paragraph you have on that page. Does it make any sense, guys?
Yeah.
Bob, you are confused. Bob, I'm looking at your face. You are confused.
See the
Tell me,
confusion.
at what point did you get confused? Tell me.
I mean, I want to ask about how the yellow HTML linked together with the
With the HTML file.
with the HTML file.
Okay, so I'll explain that again. When you write an HTML boilerplate, the boilerplate is the entire structure of that page. We did that last class. I believe you were in last class, right?
Yeah, I was there.
So when you write an HTML code, every code you are writing is sitting inside an HTML opening and closing tag. The reason why they add this there is that so you can have a container that every other code that you write on that page is living inside. The container in this case is the HTML tag, and that's what we call the root of the HTML page. Now, why we added this HTML here is that we are saying, okay, what I want to do here is that I want to add a background of green to the entire page. The only way you can add a green background to the entire page is to target the entire page. Now, how do you target the entire page? It is by targeting the HTML elements. And I went further by saying, let's now say you don't want to target the entire page. You only want to style an H1 element on that page. Then you're not going to have this HTML here. You're going to have H1 instead. Now, whatever style you define here, the browser will take that and start looking for H1 on your page, in your HTML file. Anywhere it finds H1, it will apply that style. Anywhere you find H1, it will apply that style straight. So when you run that code, every H1 on that page would have that style. I intentionally use this HTML. I don't want to use H1 or H2 or whatever, any other thing. I'm using HTML because it is intentional, so that you guys would know that you can target the entire page without specifying a particular element on that page. We had a junior developer that joined us in January this year, and this was one of his challenges, and he was on this for like 3 days. So now the problem he has was pride in the sense that we attended the same boot camp when I attended coding boot camp, but after boot camp, he went back to his normal job. He didn't apply for job as a developer. So he started having issues with his managers. Because he was a project manager at Shaw. So he felt like he cannot take a junior developer job because he's already on 6-figure salary, and it would be difficult for him to get a 6-figure salary as a junior developer. So he went back to the job. Now he started having issues and he felt like he wants to come back to development. So he came back January, and I told my boss and we hired him. So he has this issue. He was supposed to add something to an existing web page, and he was battling with it because he doesn't know that he should target an HTML element. This is as simple as it is. And after 3 days, he reached out and was like, I'm trying to do something. Can you help me? I was like, okay, what's going on? And I said, well, target the HTML now. Let's see if that works. And he was like, oh my goodness God, I have been on this for 3 days. This was what came to my mind when I was preparing this slide, that I am going to target HTML. Because if I target an ordinary element, there's no way you guys would know that there is a way to target the entire web page. So going forward, I will be using other elements, but just know that this one is only saying that we are targeting the entire page. Okay, guys.
And
my question is, James, sorry, please.
And before.
My question is now, we've been talking about targeting, specific elements like H1, H2, and all. What if I just want to target a paragraph, like not all the paragraphs, but just one specific paragraph on that page? How do I do that?
That's a brilliant question. Just calm down. We'll get to that one. Okay? So you like this.
And quick question.
Yes.
No, not a question, just an addition. I think because for me, I had the same struggle too, wondering like, what do you do with, why is that one yellow and what do you do with it? And so I had to go and type it myself. I feel like once you have either a CSS extension going, or you have that style tag, is it what you're calling it now? If you, whatever you try to what is it called, target inside, once you type the HTML, it will change it to yellow. That is the
are we having
the element that's the problem.
Are we having issues with the color?
I feel like because it sort of differentiates from the actual HTML, and like quite different for me. I'm just saying, just in case anybody has that problem, I have to type it out to see that.
Okay.
It's like the formatting of our system. Once you type it in the same way you type and it will complete. Once I typed in that HTML, it turned it yellow. Then I put the tag. I tried it with H1 too. The same thing. It would.
Okay, so for the colors, if anybody's confused with color, for the colors, I'm only trying to mimic what we have, what we're going to have normally on the VS Code. The color does nothing. It only helps us to differentiate what we are writing here. So color would not matter in this case at all.
Yeah.
Color is just color to differentiate what you're seeing, the look, the feel of everything we are writing on the page. So I'm using this to kind of mimic something close to what you would see when you write the code on VS Code. Okay, Julius, what are you trying to say?
Yeah, I think what I can deduce from everything going on here is that the HTML simply represents a particular declaration. Maybe because people are seeing you writing HTML, they are forgetting that H1, paragraph, and stuff like that are elements in the HTML itself. Maybe because you are just writing HTML.
Okay.
It will be specific to a particular declaration.
Okay. Wait, Julius, that's not true. What I'm doing here is deliberate. HTML is not just a declaration. And I've said that over and over and over. The HTML here, I'm saying I'm targeting HTML elements. In this case, I'm targeting this element. Where is my pen again? I am targeting this element, this particular one that is inside your boilerplate. And whenever I target that element, I am saying that every style I write in that element must be applicable to the entire page.
Yeah, I get that.
So this is not just an indication of any other thing. It is the HTML itself. Go in this, that HTML element.
The main one.
Okay.
All right.
Do we all get that, guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. Don't worry. We'll get it with a lot of examples. Now, we're going to do a hands-on. Okay. The hands-on is that you guys are going to style some things for me. You're going to style some text this time. Just add some style, and you will be doing. I think this one will be inline. So let's go to our downloads. If you downloaded the one I uploaded yesterday, because I re-uploaded those things. Otherwise, you can use the one we uploaded for lesson 5, I think. But I actually re-uploaded them as lesson 6. So if you go to the folder and look for lesson 6, where is it? If you've downloaded and extracted it, we're going to start with the 5.1, adding CSS. So I would open mine. Yeah. So adding CSS, you're going to try the 3 styles the 3 methods that we've learned: the inline method, the internal method, and the external method. Now, for the internal method, for the inline method, we have a boilerplate. Inside that boilerplate, let me just preview this. Inside the boilerplate, we have an H1 element. Okay, that's just the thing you want to style. I want us to style this H1 element in blue. Only the H1 element, and you are using inline. Remember, the name of the file is inline. That's all you need to do for this one. Now, when you're done with that, you do the internal one. So for the internal one, remember when I was explaining internal, if you downloaded the file, the presentation file, you can go back to it. The internal styling, let me clean this up. The internal styling is that you're going to, inside your head elements, you're going to have the style opening and closing tag, and then you will define the element you want to target. In this case, it could be HTML element, it could be H1, it could be H2, whatever I ask you to target is what you're targeting. In this case, I want you to target the H1. So the H1 here is what you are going to target. So for this, you're going to use the internal, which means you're going to add your style element inside the head, somewhere around here. And then you will target your H1 and apply red to that. Okay? Now, when you're done with that, you will do the external. The external, this is how you're going to do that. So we have an external, and you want to style this in green. So how do you do that? You're going to bring a link element inside the head, remember? And that link element is going to link a file, an external file. In this case, I already created the style.css for you. This is where you write the styling for that H1, this H1. You're going to prepare the style for it here. Once you're done, you will link that file right here in your head. And we want to see this style name in green to be green. Now, the last one here is the index.html file. Okay? So 3 methods of adding CSS. Create 3 links to the 3 web pages, inline, internal, and external. So that when I look at this thing at the end of the day, I'm going to only see, you're going to have a single page, which is the index.html, and there will be link to go to each of these ones. So at the end of the day, you're going to have something that looks like this. A single page that has inline, internal, and external. These 3 links. When I click on each of these links, if I click on inline, it will take me to this, style me in blue. If you click on internal, it will take me to style me in red. And if you click on external, it will take me to style me in green. So 2 things we're doing here. We are doing the styling, the CSS, and then we are trying to link the 3 pages together like we did before. You remember I told you that none of those things is lost. We will always be reusing them. Okay? So guys, where is the, I thought I have this thing here, the goal. Okay, let me look for the goal file for you so that you can look at how it looks, and maybe that will help understand.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, but we're not, this time around, we're not doing the background, we're doing the words themselves.
So I'll tell you how to do that now. Just a moment. So this time around, you're not styling background, you're styling a text. Now, I initially wanted you guys to figure that out, but I will tell you to save time. So the way you style text is not the same way you style background. Remember when we were styling the background, I was using something like background blue, background green. Now, when you want to target a text, let's say you are targeting an H1, this is how it will look like. So you have your opening curly braces, you have your closing curly braces, then you will target color. I mean, not target color, you target H1, you will define color, and then you specify the color that you want, red. So color, what that would do is that it will target your H1 and paint the H1 in the color of red. So this time we are not doing background color. We are only doing the color itself. Okay? So do we have any questions, guys? Let me look for the goal for you so that you can have a better understanding of what we are trying to do here. Do we have any question? Who is not clear?
This is a lot. Too.
Okay, maybe not.
this is quite a lot.
Maybe not. I'm waiting for questions, guys. Don't be quiet. Tell me, ask me. No question is stupid. No question is silly.
Can we see the goal?
Yeah, I'm coming. I'll give you the goal. I want to do it out of my screen so that you guys will not see the solution. Daju.
The color of the inline is what?
The color of the inline is in the code. Check. The color is in the text. Style me in Skinicon. Style me in blue. Style me in, okay, where is the inline? This is the inline. Style me in blue. So the color is blue. Bala blue.
I really wahala with this one. No?
So if you do this correctly, this is what you would be getting.
This CSS be like say go get a CBO.
No, you don't get anything as a big up. Don't bring that thing here.
Go be as it gets. Let's try external and see what it says.
This is the goal, guys. You're going to have a page that has 3 methods of adding CSS. There will be links to that page. 3 links. One is inline, internal, external. For each of the link, you will link them to what they depict. So for inline, you will link it to inline.html. For internal, you will link it to internal.html. And for the external, you will link it to the external.html. Now, for each of the file, you would have done your styling already. Make sure they are working and then link them. So when you are presenting the solution, it will just look like this. And then we can click, where's the goal again? And then we can click on each of them. We'll just see those colors come up. So style me in red will just appear in red. Style me in the internal will show, style me in red, it will show. Then the external would show, style me in green, it will show. Any question, guys? Any question? We have, how many minutes do you guys want? 5, 10?
Please 10.
10.
Okay. Just Latif.
Yes.
Can you just show us how one is going to look like? Like just one of them before we go into
how one of them is going to look like, right?
Like let's say we want to do the internal. How is it supposed to come out?
Yes.
So that gives you an idea of what you're actually expecting.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
But you cannot see the code, Abby, because I will make sure you don't see the code. So this is how your final solution will look like. When you click inline, this is what you will see. Style me in blue. When you click internal, you will see style me in red.
Okay, so basically what we are applying is
the color.
You know, the things that we've learned previously too by linking the pages.
Styling the pages, yeah.
Question. So you remember in the external one where we were doing the relation and the href.
Mm-hmm.
So that style sheet,
yeah,
that like a general thing or
this one, right? Yes, it's a general thing. As much as what you're doing is CSS, the relationship will be style sheet. So just copy this one and put there. It's standard style sheet.
Okay, got it. So it's making sense now.
Yeah. Any other question, guys? This is how the solution will look like. Click, you will see the first one. This is inline. If you click the internal, you will see style me in red. If you click the external, you will see style me in green. So we are going to use our link again. Our linking of web pages, multi-web pages. We can't forget any of them. We'll keep using them so that you can build the muscle memory to remember them anytime. Okay? That's the idea. Okay, 10 minutes is going to start now, guys. Let me look for Yes.
So we're creating the solution file, Sha.
The solution file. Yes.
Like the one that now has to have these ones.
I already gave you. That's the index.html.
Index.html now.
Look at the file.
But the index.html has one. Never mind.
Yes, now this is the index.html. And I put an instruction here. Create 3 links to web pages.
Never mind, sorry.
No problem.
Ah, Allah.
Allah, but Allah do you for this.
I know go.
Allah is not learning to code, though. Allah is busy with other people, I beg. Okay, where's my tomato timer, I beg?
Okay.
So you guys said 10 minutes will be fine. So we'll do 10 minutes.
Who said 10 minutes is fine?
10 minutes.
I did not know
Who said so? No, I just want to know.
Now wait out. It be like this thing it go reach like 20 minutes or 15 minutes.
Okay. Because of the linking, because I know you might have to go and refer to your notes. That's fine.
Can you show us the sample of the results?
I already showed you. This is
Mommy saying you don't be angry.
This is the result.
What you expect?
What you expect?
Yeah,
this
like
is what you expect. This is it.
how you want an arrangement of the final page. Okay, inline, internal, and external.
Yeah. Okay. You guys you are not allowing me to start my Pomodoro timer. Why?
Sorry.
Oh yeah, timer starts now. 15 minutes, guys. So we'll do 15.
Pressure.
Don't worry. It's okay, Alamin.
Now only one I could only do the inline and I could not get
that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. It's okay. Let's solve this together, guys. Let's solve this together. So I'm going to start with the inline. So for the inline, it says style me in blue. So this is the page right now. Style me in blue is showing black. If I want to style this in an inline way, I would come here in the H1 because this is the H1 tag. So I'm going to come inside the H1 tag. I'll add the attribute style. Okay. So now when I add the attribute style, that's where I would define my CSS. And for this one, I want to define the CSS color to be blue. It's as simple as that. So I'll write color. So if you look at what I'm doing, guys, each time I type, VS Code is giving me a lot of suggestions. When I tap enter on the suggestion that I want, it formats that code for me already. So he already added the colon. It already added the semicolon at the end of what I want to write. And it's showing me series of colors already. So I don't have to stress myself to type all of them. I'll just scroll to the blue and enter. And you can see immediately change the text to blue. So inline styling is add a style attributes, add your color definition, and define the color that you want to add. And then add your semicolon if VS Code did not add it for you. But in my case, you can see it already added it for me straight. So no less stress, right? I will do that again so that you see what I did, guys. So inside your H1 element, for the opening tag, you add the property style. Before I even finish typing the style, I just typed ST. You already saw style coming up. I'll just tap enter. And it added the equal sign. It added the 2 double quotes for me because it knows what I want to do. Then what I would do is to add, you see, it gave me a lot of options because style, the VS Code itself can actually sense what I'm about to write. Am I trying to define display? Am I trying to define height, padding, position, whatever? But this time I'm trying to define color. So I can scroll to color and select that by enter. The moment I press enter, it gave me all the colors that are available. So I'll just go here and select blue, enter, and it changed to blue.
So no color outside of these ones are available.
There are. We'll get to where I will show you how to grab other colors. There are 1,000,001 colors that you can have to style. You can even mix color yourself. There are ways we mix color. So there's a website that will give you guys. You go there and mix your colors and come up with a custom color and use on your website, right? So yeah, so this is inline. Okay. Did we all understand this? How does this look, guys? Sweet. So let's go to, so now we have the inline done. Let's go to the internal. For the internal, remember I said for the internal, you're still going to have the code inside the head. The CSS file, the CSS will be written inside a style tag. So the moment I bring style and I type enter, I can close it. So you have a style opening and closing tag. And when you have that, you are going to define which element you want to target. So what are we targeting here, guys?
Can you take that again, sir? Sorry, please.
So I go back. So we are doing this internal. For internal, you will go into the head element, the opening and the closing head element. That's where you will go and add your style elements. So you have a style element, it has opening and closing. So I have opening style and closing style. In between the opening and closing, I will target my elements there. What element are we targeting, guys? Tell me, what element are we targeting?
H1.
H1. H1. So the H1 is the one that carries style me in red. So we want to style this to be red. Now it is black. So what do? We go here, we target H1. You open your opening and curly braces, and then you target color. Color, you define it. Once you put it.
So how did you open and close those curly braces, or did they come of themselves?
No.
You open it yourself. So you go to your keyboard.
Okay. No problem. I got that.
So you once you press the open, VS Code close it for you. You only need the opening one. You don't need the closing one. Just press the open, HTML open, close it for you. Then you press enter to just make it look in a better format. And then you add the color. This case we are adding a red color, right? That's it. It changed to red immediately. So we've been able to add, this is the only thing we add here. Look at this, from line 6 to line 10. So we have style opening, style closing, and then we define our CSS. So the CSS here is that.
Did we not have end twice? Did I miss? Where's the end for the end? Oh, okay.
This one? No, this is.
Never mind. I see what.
Yeah. Okay. So I opened it and I closed it. And then we are targeted the H1 element, which is this H1. Okay. When I targeted it, I opened my curly braces and I defined the color to be red. And that's it. It changed the text to red. Kaji, any question, guys? Any question? Any question? No question. So, I'm struggling to. Okay, no question. So let's go to external. Now, the external is the one that I said we're going to be doing going forward. Okay. And how are we going to do that? We will have a link tag inside the head element. Link. The link is a self-closing tag, remember, right? And inside the link, what do we define? We are going to define two things, two attributes. First is the relationship. So we define relationship. And what is our relationship here? Style sheet. The next thing we define after relationship is our href, which is what links to the CSS file. Now, where is our CSS file? It is right inside the same directory. So if I do one dot and put a slash, then I can look for CSS file here. The last one, CSS, and I save it. So right now, I've been able to link the file, but I have not defined the CSS itself. So it's still showing style me in green and the color is black. So now let's go and define what we want to style inside the file. So what are we styling? Remember, we are styling this H1 element. So we will be targeting H1. So I'll go into my CSS, style.css, and I will target H1. And I will write color to be what? Green. Okay, now. So what I've been able to do here is that I've styled each of the files one by one. Now, that's not the end of this assignment. The end of the assignment is that we will now bring all of those three files into our index.html. So let's go and bring them into our index.html, guys. So this is our index.html. Close all these ones. We don't need you guys again. Thank you. So now let's do our index.html. So the instruction says, let me preview this first. So right now there's nothing showing up here. So it says create 3 links to the web pages, inline, internal, and external. So let's do that. So the first one, we're going to have a link. A link is an A tag. Do you all agree with me? Do you know what I did here? I actually did not type all of this. I just typed one thing and it gave me the complete H tag with my href. I just need to add the link inside. What I did was, okay, I don't think you guys have that try this on your VS Code, guys, if it works. Type A and tab out. So A and then tab. If it gives you this. If it doesn't, then you don't have it, and I don't want you to have it. Does it give you?
Okay. I have that one from day one.
Okay.
He said, I don't want you to have
I
it.
think,
Come and take it.
But you know one funny thing? Over the course of the week, I don't know what happened to my VS Code. And I had to manually. It's better to know that thing manually, sincerely.
Guys, you have to know this is manually. This thing that you guys have all these things is annoying me. Seriously, it's annoying me. Go. Okay. So now let's link those 3 pages inside our index.html, right? So we have an anchor tag and it gave us an href. Now, what are we going to have in our href? We are going to link the first one, inline. So inline, the file is right in the same directory, okay? And when we have the same file in the same directory, when we have a file in the same directory, we are going to start with 1 dot. And you can see, it gave me the options and I can look for my inline.html. That is it. That's it, guys. That's it. I should be able to now see inline here as a link. And if I click on inline, it should take me to inline. Start me in blue. That one is working. Let's do the next one. The next one says, so I'm going to copy this 3 times or 2 times. The next one is internal. So I'll just change the inline to internal and I'll change this one to external. Okay, this one should be capital I. And then I'll change the text to internal and change the text. Is this too small? Guys, I forgot to zoom out this thing. Sorry if you've been straining your eyes to see. And I'll have external. That's it. That's the end of the solution, guys. So now we have 3 links: inline, internal, external. So if I click on inline, it takes me to inline. If I go back, click on internal, take me to style me in red. If I go back and click on external, take me to style me in green. Have you guys been able to find out where the issue is? Why you were not able to finish yours? If you didn't finish this, were you able to figure out why?
Yeah. So I think the only thing I was able to get right in this whole exercise was doing this href inline and create that. The other part was, of course, the what's it called? This red one. Which one is that? Yeah, the internal. Apart from that, those other 2, no, I did not get those at all. Especially this external. This external looks a bit complicated for
the external bar. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the external way is the way we are going to be doing it going forward. And if it looks complicated now, don't worry. The more you do it, the more it sticks. That's why you see me bringing back linking to other web pages, because I don't want it to stop
because we had to basically go and bring, like, I didn't know you had to add this style, the CSS. I didn't know you had to go, type on the style of CSS itself and create the green there.
Okay.
Before linking everything there. Yeah.
Okay. Now you know, right? That when you're doing external, the CSS is going to live on a separate file. That file can be anything, but the extension must be .css. So when your browser wants to run that code, it will grab the CSS file, it will read through the CSS file. It's okay, I'm looking for H1. It will now go and look in the HTML file, look for H1 and apply that style. That's how it works in the browser. I would have wanted to preview this in the browser, but let's leave this for now. We'll preview another one, a bigger one as we continue. Any question, guys? Any question? For those who are not able to finish it, any question right now? Any question? It's a small class today, so we can ask questions as much as possible.
Can you show me that, what's it called? The
external?
Inline. What's the code for that inline? Let me see that.
Just a moment. Let me collapse. This is the inline.
Let me see. Which one did I not get right? Let me see. I think I got the. Yeah, it was just the external. It was just the external that was.
Okay.
It was just the external that was the problem for me.
Okay, Alami, what's up? Talk to me.
Yeah, I was only able to the the inline, the internal. I could not get that because I did not know that I have to go up, like you did in the internal. It's not like I'll come and type it where the H1 is. I have to type it after that style.
Are
But I
you
was
saying?
trying to find my own way to type it in that, styling in red place itself. But I did not try the, external at all because I did not, finish the internal at all.
Okay.
So that's why. But now I think I can do that.
Okay. Bob, Alpha.
I think I'm having a bit of difficulties in the internal as well. Yeah.
The internal, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So after I solve this, does this make sense or it's still kind of shady?
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense.
Okay, I need to sit down. So now, who else in the class? Yeah, that's all. So yeah, so I believe, do you guys want me, are you able to correct your code now, or you want me to send you this solution?
Okay, Latas, you didn't ask for that problem.
You said you finished it now. Yeah, you and Julius finished it, so I don't need to ask you guys.
Let's see that inline again, please.
Inline, yeah.
Latas, you gave up on me.
I don't want to bother you because you came late, so I'm not sure if you actually did it or not.
But I actually did it and I mentioned it.
Okay, so do you get it right, or was there an issue?
Yeah, I think I got it right.
Okay, perfect then. Of course, I can't give up, and even those that are not in class, I still cannot give up on them. I will beat them, the Akoboko, when they come back to this class, unless they don't come again.
Fine.
It's funny, Sha. This is the first time we have half of the class. After resume assignment. If anybody thinks HTML is frustrating, I'll do like this. I'll be watching you like a bat. Get to CSS first. You will see the best, the father of frustration is in CSS. No jokes, guys. That's the reason why some people sat down to create what is called Bootstrap. Because CSS is mad. Like, it can run you mad. So some people feel like, okay, instead of me to be writing this CSS code, I'll be spending months to get things right. Let's have a Bootstrap. So we can bootstrap styling. We don't have to write all the code. Just know the class to call. So call a class and it will work. We will not do Bootstrap until we finish CSS. So don't think we are going to be doing Bootstrap. We will do the CSS. All of us will finish CSS. We will struggle together. Then we will not learn Bootstrap. Then life will come day easy, small. Like, bleh. Okay. Guys, can we continue?
Yeah,
We can continue, right?
I think so.
Okay. If you guys are able to make sure you get this right. If you didn't get it right, make sure you use this solution to get it right, so that when you get it right,
Click on that internal
Excellent. Also,
before you go.
So save it, guys. Save the code. When you get it right, save it, because you are still going to need it. Trust me. That's true. I'm gonna forget it though. I cannot. Okay. Yeah. Can we continue?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Okay, let's continue from here.
Before we continue, sorry for dragging you back. Can you show me that inline one more time?
Inline.
Something
Okay.
I'm just checking against my code. Something looks missing.
This is the
Every
only.
time I click.
Let me just put it here. This is what we added in the inline. Let me just put it.
Every time I click my link, it's just showing me one small line.
It's showing you one small line.
Yeah, just small, like, I don't know. Maybe let me share my screen very quickly.
Share
See what I'm doing. Maybe.
Okay, let me give you access. Share screen. Now you can share. And you make it big.
Yeah. Come.
Now your semicolon is missing. This is what I was talking about. Like some people, it will not work for
Is
them.
that?
You have that semicolon in front of blue. So after blue, add semicolon. Save it. Let's see. No. Okay. So
Right.
okay. I see what the problem is. You have two closing H1 tag. So you have to take out one close, the one before. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And you need H1, small H1. Yeah.
Okay. Now it comes out right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
so there were two
Okay,
there.
that-
Yeah, because you know why? Because when you write the opening H1 tag, VS Code completes it for you, but you went ahead to write to complete it yourself. So you now make two.
Okay.
So watch out. Sometimes VS Code complete those tags for you.
Ogalata, please. Can you show the internal distinction again? This one to
Don't worry, I'll send the code out so that
Okay.
we can move forward, right? I'll just a moment. I'll just zip the code and send it out now on general. La, 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 la. So I just dropped it in general tab, in general channel, adding css.zip. So just unzip it. That's the solution. Okay, guys, let's continue. Bob, you can try and look at that after so that you don't miss out in the next one. So we've done that. Can we do a quick quiz? Are we ready, guys? Are we ready? Are we ready? Get your camera phone.
Don't start with this your barcode.
Get your camera phone. Get your camera phone. Guys, look at these things. So I have four codes here, four CSS styling codes here. The first one, so this is going to be like you are doing an internal style. But let me know, okay, it's not like an internal style. It is going to be an external style, not internal. You want to style an external, you want to style a web page using the external method that we did just now. So this is the first option. The first option uses a style tag, the style element, has an href, the style sheet that we want to use, the relationship, which is style sheets, as we said before. The second one uses a link element, has an href, has a style.css, the name of the file, and the relationship. The third one has a style element, has a source attribute, and indicated the name of the file and the relationship. The last one has a link element, uses a source attribute to call the style.css, the name of the style file, or the style sheet, and the relationship. Which one is correct, guys? Snap with your phone and tell me how many times you tried before you got the thumbs up or the cheers. Let's do that. How far, guys? How far?
Yeah, green.
How many times did you snap it?
Just once.
Okay.
I don't know if it's my scanner, but it's sending me to some weird page when I scan.
Close it and do it again.
That's what I just did. It still didn't work.
Same here too.
If you successfully scan QR code and it says start, so sign up.
Sign up, blah, blah, blah.
Don't sign up, oh. Just close it. And it worked for some people? Why?
But the green, I was scanning the one in green.
Okay. Yeah. So why is the one in green? Why not the first one, the blue one?
Well, the one in green, because it contains, for an external thing, we have to link it to an external CSS file.
Mm-hmm.
It contains the href, although you swapped it out, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
the relationship style sheet thing. So
What about this? What about this one? This one has the same thing. It has,
it
Yeah,
starts
but
with a
the
style.
link is
So
not there. The
the
link is not
style
there.
tag is the wrong thing there.
okay. So why not this one?
So it has the link.
Source. This one has source, not
not a
href.
source attribute.
Reference.
Okay.
Source attribute is usually used in image something.
Okay. Thank you, guys. You are building your muscle memory. Nice. Nice. Who is confused? Is anybody confused with this ones? Bob, Alpha, do you understand what we're doing here?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
understand
yeah,
the
sure.
difference between this? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Jaido, Alpha, you understand this?
Yeah, I have, guys.
Awesome. Okay. Majid, Alpha.
Now, Ogalatas,
Yeah, Alami.
Yeah, I'm good.
although I was actually scanning the green, but I have a question. My question is, why is it that we, it's the one with the link, not, the one that starts, with the star? I just want to ask that question. I mean, why is it not the blue one as against the green?
Okay, nice. So we'll go back to the presentation quickly. Yeah, we're actually on the presentation. So this is external styling. Okay, external styling uses the link elements. Okay, now this is internal. I just sat down now. The internal uses the style. So that's the difference. So when you're doing internal styling, that's when you use the style elements.
Internal and inline, right?
The inline, yeah, the inline too. The inline, although it's not an element, is going to be an attribute. So when you're doing inline, it's just an attribute. It is not an element. But when you're doing internal, it is an element and it's a style element before you add your CSS. When you're doing external, then you'll be using a link because it's external. You are linking to an external file. You are not actually writing the style. You are only linking this file to the style file. Kaji, do you understand now?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Okay, guys, we can continue now.
That is actually Kagani.
Kagani, okay.
Kaji, like, did you hear? When you're trying to say, did you understand?
Okay, Kagani. Now, Nagani.
Kagani.
Which was the meaning of that one? Because I have a lecturer who says that always. Go back. Okay.
Go back. Shall we go on break or shall we continue?
Yes, please break.
Okay. All right. Let's continue the class with CSS selectors. So you realize that what we've been doing so far is that we've been targeting an element on our page. We've been defining what we want to style and how we want to style it. So this is what and this is how. Now, there is something called selectors in CSS. And one of those things is what we've used before. You can use elements, you can select elements or target elements to be able to style that element. But you have to think of it like this. So what if I have 3 H1s, or let's say it is H2, because normally you're not going to have 3 H1s on a normal circumstance in a page. Let's say you have 3 H2s on a page, and you want the H2s to be one to be red, one to be blue, and one to be green. If you do H1 and style it blue, all of them are going to be blue. And if you do another H1 and style it red, then it changes everything to red. If you do another one and style it green, it changes everything to green. So how do you differentiate which H1 I am targeting? And the way you do that is by the idea of selectors. So how do you now select a particular element so that among the group of that element, you can select a particular one that, okay, you are the one I am targeting for this style, not all the H2 elements on this page. So now what we're going to be, so for this one, it is called an element selector, like I said. But if we have something like this, this is a typical example. So we have index.html file, and we have our style.css. Let's assume that somehow we have been able to link these two files together. We are not concerned about how to link them right now. We are only concerned about styling them. So we have 3 H2 elements on this page: red, green, and blue. And as you can see, it will show us the red, green, and blue. All of them will be in black. Now, if we apply this style, H2, and we style it color red, what we're going to see will be like this. But what if that's not what you want? What if what you actually want is to give them different colors? That way, we need to now look at what is called class selectors. So there's something called class selectors. Before, what we've done, what we just finished doing was using element selectors. So we are selecting the element on their by themselves. That's why you were seeing H2, HTML, and all that you were, or H1 that you were using. But then there is class selector, such that you don't have to style all the H2s on your page the same color. So how do you do that? That is simply done by having a class on the HTML that you are trying to style. So how to have a class? This is a typical example. You have a class name for that HTML. You will give it a name. For example, we are trying to style a heading, and we want to style that heading red. To make the name descriptive, we call it red heading. When you call it red heading as a class, which I will show you how to do the class, when you now want to style that class, you are going to target it by using the dots. There must be this dot notation that shows that you are targeting a class called red heading. So this time, although you are targeting a heading, but you're not targeting H2, you are only targeting the H2 that has a class of red heading. And once the browser grabs that class, it will style it in red. Now let's see how that works. So we have an H2 element, we have an H3 element, and we have a paragraph element. The H2 element has heading 2 as the content. The H3 element has heading 3 as the content. And the P element, the paragraph element, is just a paragraph. Now we want to style this, and we now have a class. So there's a new attribute coming in, guys. The attribute is called class. We use this for styling. So this class attribute, you're going to define a class attribute equal to, you give it a name. The name should be descriptive. You know why? If you decide to go and name it anything, because you feel like if this is my code, I will know what I wrote there. It's a lie. You will pick up that code in the next 1 year, you can never understand what was there, because you think the way you were thinking when you wrote the code would have been different. Not just that, if anybody pick up your code the next day to read, they would not even know what you wrote there. So when you're doing these things, make sure it is descriptive enough. It doesn't mean that you have to call it red because you want to style it red. I use the word red text because it is descriptive to know that this class is for a text that I want to style in red. Okay, so make sure your class names are descriptive to depict what that class is supposed to do. It can be longer, it can be more than one word. Just make sure you connect them either with a dash or with an underscore. So the class name we are targeting is red text. Now look at this. Our H2 element carries the same class name as the P element. So before, what we did before, you can only target them separately. You can target H2 and target P. But now you can actually target both the H2 and the P to have the same color. And to do that, you only need to add a class. So when you add the same class to both of them, so you can see class equals red text, class equals red text. Now, when you write your CSS file, you will target that red text, the class name. So we are targeting this class name, red text, with your dot notation, and then you define your color to be red. This is what you get. You have heading 2 will be red and paragraph will be red. Why? Because both of them carries the class red text. Does that make sense, guys? Does that make sense? Who is confused? Please show
So
up.
it doesn't matter whether it is paragraph or whatever, since the class name, it is the class name that matters now, not
exactly.
the
exactly, because we are not targeting elements in this case. We are only targeting the class name. So what is the class name? So what the browser is going to do is that it will look on your HTML and look for any class that is red text. It will then assign or apply this style to those elements. Okay? Kagani? Okay. We are on point, right?
But sir, the method they are using for this is the external, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I told you that going forward, we are external.
External method, yeah.
And if you want to ask all of us if we understand, it's Kungadi.
So, what you're trying to say
male
is,
singular.
okay, so what you're trying to say is that, so for this red text, before we impute it, it's just going to be like that style.css where we'll create it in a different,
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's why you see each of the file that I have here carries their name.
Under style CSS. Okay.
Yeah. So this
All
is
right.
a file called
We'll
style.
first create it there and then reference it in the HTML file, right?
Exactly. You have to still link it. Remember, you must link for it to work. You must link it like we had the link in the one we had before. You remember? Here.
Yeah.
You must have this link. Where is the link? Really? This is the link. You must have this link. And then you now define your CSS in your code. Like Overrume, right? Okay. Let me talk it small, please. I don't want it to get cold. Okay, guys. Let's continue. So that's called the class selectors. Now, apart from the class selector, we have other types of selectors. There's something called the ID selector. Now, remember, when I was explaining the class selector, I said, let's say you have several elements, whether of the same tag or of different tags, but you want to apply the same style to all of those. Okay, you can group them or you can separate them using class. Now, for this ID selector, identifier, the word ID is identifier. It must be unique. Okay, unlike the CSS, unlike the class, where we had both an H2 and a P tag carrying the same class name. In the case of an ID, two elements cannot have the same ID. It must be unique. That's why they call it ID. Your ID is different from mine. My ID is different from any other person. So it must be unique to that element. So in other words, no two elements can have the same ID. That is the difference between the class and the ID. I will repeat that. For the class, you can have more than one element having the same class name. So that when you when you style that class, the styling would apply to all the elements that carries that class name. In the case of an ID, no two elements can have the same ID. It must be unique for each element. So if you have ID on H2 and the ID is called red text, you cannot have another element, maybe another P tag or P element carrying the same red text. No way. It must be another thing. Okay? And how do you write an ID? For the class type, you remember we were using dot notation, and then we will give the name of the class. For the ID, we will be using the hash notation, and then you give the name of the ID. So let's say we are having an ID name called red text. You have the hash, no space in between the hash and the text. The same way for the class, no space in between the dots and the text. Okay. So, yeah, so that is the difference between the class and the ID. Is my English clear enough, guys? Is it clear enough, the difference between the two? You must understand this too, so that you don't start throwing one major problem or one common mistake by everybody learning software is to throw IDs around because it's the easiest to use. but it's bad. It is wrong. It must be unique. You will hardly see ID. The moment you see an ID, that means they want to apply something to that element that must be unique to that element. In other words, other than that, you will be seeing classes everywhere. It's class that you see common. Once you see an ID, there must be a reason for that, a very important reason for an ID. But it's part of what we use to style our CSS. So ID is written with the use of the hashtag and the name of the ID. You open your curly and closing braces, and then you define whatever style you want to have. So let's see that in play. Let's say you have three H2 elements. One of them shows red, the one is green, and the other one is blue. And you just want to apply a red color to the first one. So you have an ID, the attribute to be an ID, not a class this time. ID equals, you give a name to the ID. You can be red text, it can be anything, but it must be descriptive. So in this case, we are calling it main. So we have an ID main, which means we want to style this thing, and only this H2 must carry that style that we are going to define. So to write that, we're going to have an hash. Then we'll call the ID name. This is the ID. We use the ID, no space in between the two. We open our curly braces and close it. And in between, we have our style definition. So color red. And that's why you see that only that first H2 has the color red. The other ones remain as they are.
Good question.
Mm-hmm.
So can we have multiple definitions under the style CSS?
Yes.
Like the way we have this one now, can we have right underneath it? Can we have another one? You know.
Yes, you can have another one, another ID, maybe primary. You define it. You can have color blue. And then you come here, maybe the second H2, you have an ID equals primary. Okay, when you style that, it will change this green one to be blue. Whatever you define here, let's define it as green. It will change this to green. You will see that in action. So you can have multiple definitions in your CSS file. Okay, it doesn't have to be just one. We are only doing one because for the sake of explaining. Okay, in the real sense, you can have as many, in fact, your CSS file can be as long as 1,000 lines of code, right? For different elements on your HTML page. Does that answer your question, guy?
Yeah, it does. Thanks.
Any other question, guys? Any other question? Because you know that once I'm explaining like this, the next thing you are going to is hands-on. But before we do hands-on, let's do one more. Yes?
I have a question.
Okay.
So once we define all of these things in the CSS is correct file, and then of course on the HTML file, we would have gone into add all of the classes, the IDs, would have done that.
Mm-hmm.
Then to the only way to connect is just that one link. Is it called an element now or link tag?
The link element, yes.
Okay.
The link tag, the link element, whatever, the link tag. Yes. Only that one link tag would grab all the code because you are not linking to the code, you are linking to the file. So it grabs everything in that file and apply it to your HTML.
Right. I'm just thinking of like a workflow. So as you're writing your HTML, you're
adding the CSS classes or IDs or whatever you want to use, yeah.
Right. And it's only like if you want to use like a general background for the whole thing.
That you now target HTML, yes.
The HTML. So let's say I don't know if it's forming in my brain yet. So let's say on this page that you have red, green, and blue, right? You want to put the red in red. You want the background for the entire file to be green.
Okay.
Right?
Then you have HTML.
So you have the HTML written in there. Okay.
Yes. Then you have background.
Right. And so everything still comes you still have just one link thing going into the boilerplate.
Yes, correct.
Fair enough.
You guys get the question and the response.
You phrase it.
Okay.
You can come again.
Okay. So what Jem is asking is, what we've been doing so far is that we've been targeting only one element. What if you want to target several elements and also target the entire root? You remember when I was mentioning root, I said HTML is the root. Do you still have to write all the CSS in the same file, and that single link that you created on your HTML boilerplate will still work for all of them? And the answer is yes. And the reason why it is yes is that that link is linking the file. It is not linking any of this code. It is linking the file. And when you link the file, it means you have linked every other thing in that file. Okay? So once you reference the style.css, anything inside style.css has been linked to the HTML file.
Can you come again, sir? I did not get that. I was talking. I did not know my mic was muted.
Okay. I will come again. What Jen was asking is this. Right now, we've been doing only one CSS definition in our style.css file. And then we're using our link to link this style.css and the HTML index.html file. What happens when we have multiple definition of styles here? Like we are targeting the H2, H1, H whatever, we are targeting even HTML. And then we have a lot of code here. Do we add something to the link code, or is still that link that still works for all of this? And it is yes, it is still that link, because that link is for the file. It is not for the code. And whatever, once you target the file, then the file has all the codes. So all of them would apply to the page. I don't know if there's a better way I can explain this.
I get that, sir.
Okay. So if you get that, then we can continue. So we've talked about two types of CSS selectors. We've done element selector. In fact, three. We've done element selector, which we did before. We've done class selector, where you have a class name on the HTML elements, and then you target them using the dot notation in your CSS file. Then we've talked about ID selector, where you add an ID name on the HTML that you want to target, and you target that element in your CSS file using the hash notation. The other one we're going to be talking about is the attribute selector. Now, the attribute selector is that, let's say you now have two different elements that have the same class name. Okay, so we have an H2 element and we have a P element, a paragraph element, and we already defined the same style for the H2 and the P using class. But you still want to add something to the P that must not affect the H2. Follow me, guys, follow me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like the example you used the last time, the red text.
And the only one, yeah, you see,
Like what you do, like
I'm thinking,
like,
yeah, I don't know if it's only me that is feeling that way, that we should take
a break.
Not take a break really. Do we want to try and practice the first two ones, the class and the main, before adding another third one to it, before it becomes
I want to follow the instructors.
No, I don't agree. There's a reason why you
get why
separate.
Gem mission. The mission is to add everything.
Alani, hold on. Can we do it this way? Let's use the first example that you used, the H1 having red text and the P having red text.
Yes,
so
that's what I'm actually using. I just don't want to go back to it, but let me go back to it. So here we have an H2 element that has a class name, red text. Okay. We have a P element that also have the same class name, red text. Okay. And we style the red text once, and that style applies to both of them. Now, if I go ahead and say, okay, apart from making the color red, if I add another attribute, let's say another style here. Let's say I have another, before I closed it, just below the color, let's say I now have font size 20 pixels. So what this is doing is that I'm saying for the two of them, in fact, I'm saying size this red text, anything that has red text, style it to make the font to be 20 pixels. Which means instead of this one to be looking bigger than this, both of them will now have the same size.
So Galatas, are you putting the font now inside of the braces or outside?
Inside. You can add as many as possible properties inside this opening and closing braces, not just one. So it doesn't have to be color alone. You can have so many things as much as it's applied to the red text. Whatever you have for the red text is what you are using it for. So you can have color, you can have size, you can have padding, you can have so many things. We'll get there, okay? But for the sake of this explanation, I'm using it to explain. So whatever you add in here, it is still going to apply to both of them, the H2 and the P. They must look the same. But what if there is still something I want to add and I don't want both of them to have it, and I don't want to create a separate class? That will now be another class, okay? Now, what we now do is to use an attribute selector. And how we do that is that you're going to add another attribute in that particular one that you want to have a different look. Since both of them carry the same class, and you cannot change that, but you still want one of them to have something unique, something different from the other one, then you have an attribute. So let's go back to the presentation. So that's how we got to attribute selector. When I was talking about self-closing tags, you remember I was using something like draggable, right? Yeah. Draggable is supposed to be an attribute as well. So let's now say that situation again. We have an H2. The H2 already has a style. I'm not going to write the style. That has a content, and then it closes. I don't like this way this mouse is writing, but we have no choice right now. And this one has its own context and closes too. Both of them has the class, the same class. But you want one of them to still have something different that the other one is not going to have. Different from Bala Blue. Okay, so
wow.
That thing cannot leave my brain, honestly.
No joke. No joke. If you make me laugh.
Galatas, no, leave Bala Blue for now.
No joke.
Okay. Let's leave Bala Blue.
Funny enough, it's all your faces that are making me laugh. Not with the Bala Blue.
The way I pity people here. When our face no they smile at, I mean I smile for me now. When they even made the
smile today.
Class you the zero next class, right?
Maybe that dream I have is gonna start today.
No, it won't work. That dream will not come to pass.
Jide, that dream can never come to pass.
Now you have a dream, will not work.
You know when he said Bala Blue or Galatas, if you notice, I don't say inside their stomach they won't laugh, but the don't hook them for it. Just captured that reaction.
Because they don't catch me. The way we grow from 12 to 6, we don't go from 6 to 0. That's geometric progression.
I will still sticking to our 3 hours because it's almost 10 years.
We have to stick to
that 3 hours because my head is spinning me already.
I have to stick that 3 hours because today's class like this, I have to do 2 to 3 revision. Exactly.
Guys,
if you go further than this, now what is heavy already?
Please lecturer, please now you push your lecturer.
Lata, sorry, I'm very sorry if I'm doing Puma. I've gone through the class. I don't know whether class exercise for this attribute selector. Now you're talking about the ID selector. If you look at the assignment we have here, or maybe the class exercise, you've given us some sets of we have a paragraph.
Wait. If it's on this one, let's get there. Let's jump the gun.
We will soon end the class. We will soon end the class now.
Who is ending the class?
We have to solve this now.
Who is ending the class? Who is ending the class?
What are you doing? Are you talking about something that we have not even gotten to?
Meet all of them. Meet all of them.
I will meet all of you. Who is ending the class? I'm not ending any class. So we must finish this CSS one, this particular one. Let me go back.
Yes, please.
So let's say we have an H1, and then we have a class. In fact, why am I being like a mumu? Let me just copy that code now.
That's why you're going to trade it.
This one.
Why don't you open VS Code and
allow teacher now? This Julius.
When he's ready, you come and take over here and be teaching the class.
No, I know the PowerPoint is giving you problem.
How can PowerPoint be giving you problem?
Sorry, sir.
When you are ready, you come and take over.
I know it's almost your bedtime.
Thank God. My brain don't they prepare you.
Okay, let me format.
I don't know how person they sweat for inside AC. Well, I don't deal.
Bob, it's okay. You guys don't let us finish this particular part.
Finish it to them, the tractors. We must finish this thing today.
Okay. Okay, so this is what we're saying, guys. Let's concentrate. So we have two elements, right, that has the same style definition. Okay, so the H2 and the P have the same class name. So in other words, everything you defined in that class name called red text is going to be applicable to both of them, the H2 and the P. But there are situations where you want to still add something, maybe to H2, and you don't want the P to have that thing. Okay? But if you go and add it in that style, it will be applicable to both of them. But you want to kind of separate it. You don't want the P to have it. So what you do is that after the class or before the class, whichever, you have another attribute. Okay? For example, let's say you add draggable. Maybe this H2 was supposed to be draggable naturally. Equals true. Maybe this H2 was supposed to be draggable, so it has this draggable. If it doesn't have, fine, you can add something else. You can call it anything, but because you want to target that thing. So whatever it is that you add on that element that you want to have something different, you call that element first. In this case, it is H2. You call it, you have an H2, and then you open a square braces and put that attribute that you just added or that was there that you want to use. So in this case, we added draggable. Just add draggable. And then you can now define the style. So if it's not colored this time, if it's something else, you define that thing. So whatever you define here is only going to be applicable to a P or H. So in this case, let's stick to the P. It's only going to be applicable to a P element that has an attribute called draggable. Does that make sense?
Yes.
No.
What is the meaning of that draggable?
Okay, why did I use draggable? I will use something else.
Hold on, Oga Latas. My own question is, where are you on? Are you doing this definition on the HTML file, or is this something you're doing on the CSS, the whole square braces thing?
So this is our HTML file, remember? And this is our CSS file.
Right.
So we are doing the square braces inside the CSS. We are targeting a P element that has draggable. Let's now say it is not draggable. Like Alamin is annoying, is angry with the draggable thing. Let's say it is not draggable.
Alamin no go keep us.
So let's say it is not draggable. And I'm going to do that now. I'm going to make it look real now, guys. Watch me.
Okay.
So let's say I add a space and I add something called dense.
Oh, why dense?
Voila, why draggable? Why this?
So,
No, so now Mumu dey report this.
kill me now.
We know be Mumu now. Why they call us this?
Now.
We know this now. Now the thing hard.
Galata, they use code be Jesus.
Your minds are dirty. Your minds are dirty. Okay, maybe this one will make sense.
So we're assuming that on the CSS, right? We already had like an element that had that targeted the class, right?
Yes, there was already a class that gave both of them the same style. Okay.
Right. So we would have done. Is this going to be inside the red? So for the class example, we had .red text. And then we put in the curved braces, and then we put the color red.
Yeah.
This is something
that one has already been done. We've already done that for the red text, for the red text class name, which already gave both of these the red color. Right. But we now want to add something that is different, that is unique to H2, and it will not be part of P, even though they both have the same color. But we still want each of them to have something different from one another. So we are going to add a separate attribute. And whatever attribute we add, it may not be a standard attribute to HTML. The only way we can tell the browser that look for any element that has this my dense attribute and apply this style is to do this.
So we're writing it as a separate line from
separate line element, a separate line text, CSS, yes. Okay. It's going to be a separate definition of that particular thing you want to add. And how to add it is that you're going to call that element. So in this case, it's an H2. You're going to open a square braces and add the name of the attribute you put in there. In this case, it is, and the only way to do that is using Boolean. Boolean is true or false. If you're adding something that is on your own, that is not known to HTML, it must be a true or a false. So whatever name you call it, Bala Blue, whatever, is either it is equal to true or it is equal to false. If it is true, the website will run it. If it is false, there's a way to target it if you want it to run or if you don't want it to run. Because if it is false, naturally it will not run. But if you want it to run, even though it is false, I will show you how to run that. But I don't want to go too deep on each of them. So let's take it one by one. Right now, we are adding a separate attribute to that class. And okay. Did you guys go through that CSS link that I sent? Who did not go through that link? Be honest. Be honest with me here.
I didn't. If there's a link, I don't know.
Okay, you did not. Okay, who else did not? Bob, did you not, Rabi? Jide did not. Okay. Majid did not. Bob, did you? No.
No.
Okay. Let it be the last time I will give you guys link and you not go through it.
We're sorry.
Yeah, sorry, you.
I did not even see it.
I don't even know what
I didn't even see it.
Okay. Okay.
Come and meet us.
Who did that? The person says off camera, go they do all your camera if you show you.
Leave out. Don't worry.
This one no be class level again. Now threat.
And I mean, carry gun. I remain now.
Okay, let's come back. Let's come back home. So what I'm trying to explain here is, even though more than one element have the same style through the class, you can still have them, you can still make them have some things that are different, that are not the same for all of them. And how you do that is that the one that you want to make it look different in some ways is you are going to go there and add an extra attribute and make it true. Then you will now target that attribute that you added. So in this case, let's say we want H2 to have something that P will not have, even though both of them has the same thing by the virtue of the fact that they both have the same class, red text. But there's still something you don't want both of them to have. We only want one of them to have. So you go to that one, add an attribute, make it true, and then you call that attribute. You call the element first. So in this case, it's an H2 element. Okay, browser, look for an H2 element that has an attribute called dense, and then apply whatever style you add in here.
So it can't be class again. Like you can have two classes.
No, you cannot have two. You can't carry two classes in a single element. So when you have a class and you still want to add something that is not unique to that class, then you add another attribute. And this is how you are going to call that attribute. So this is an attribute selector. The same way
all this will be in our CSS file, the CSS.
This one, yeah. They will be part of your CSS file. So the same way, let's say you now want something to be on P that H2 must not have. So you add you're going to add an attribute to P, make it true, and then you call it, okay, for the P tag, browser, look for a P element, and any P that has a draggable attribute, apply whatever style you write in there to that P. That's that. Don't worry, even if it sounds blurry right now, it's actually not as terrible as it sounds. It's pretty easy. You only need to calm down, and think through this, okay? And it will be clear. So a typical example, there's a chat. Let me read the chat. Be sending this link during the week. It's not during the week that I sent it. It's during the weekend. What do you mean? I sent this thing during the week.
Address to the class rep. Address to the class rep.
On your camera and talk to me direct.
Okay, this is addressed to the class rep, not me.
Class rep.
I block all of you.
I beg, repost link, I beg.
I'm going to remove all of you from that class. Just because I mistakenly added you people to the class capstone.
But you did not add me, Jem.
You already. I did, my friend.
Ogalata self no say I enter in DM.
You enter my DM, but I wrote in DM.
I just started looking for the whole thing. I use my coding sense. Now all these things maybe say me I they learn for class. We all
Agbakoda. Okay, let's continue.
People will stay here for the 4 hours. Continue interrupting.
We know that one is not negotiable, self. Although my kids have birthday at 4, but let's see how it goes. So let's now see a typical example. So you have 3 P elements here. All the 3 Ps have different items. So the first one is drag me. The second one says don't drag me. The third one says don't drag me. Now you know that if you target a P element here, all of them will have the same thing. But you still want one P not to have the same thing as others. So you add a draggable, okay? When you add a draggable, you can target P and then put in the draggable that you added here, which is true, and you define a color red. Then that particular one is going to be red. I know that you can do this with an ordinary class. I want you to understand the class. What?
Who be that now? Bob or which one? Mute your mic.
Hey, I know this is simple. You can do this with a class, but there's a reason why I'm using this as an example. So listen. So we're targeting the draggable. The P that has a draggable attribute is the one we want to be red. And that's why you see this one being red. So now let's look at this. So all of them has draggable. Okay? But only one of them is true. The other ones are false. Now, what does our CSS style say? Our CSS style says, target a P element that has a draggable. Now, in this case, all of them has draggable. But the draggable that is false is the only one I want to be red. I believe that now it should be making sense to you guys. So target a P element that has a draggable attribute. Now, the first thing is the browser will go and grab all of them because they all have draggable, but it doesn't end there. It now says the draggable that is equal to false is the only one that I'm targeting, and the color must be red. And you can see this one and this one are false. And that's why you have don't drag me to be false. Does it explain this thing better now? This attribute selector better now, right? Yeah. So what this is saying is that you can customize your own attributes, I mean your styling, and tag or even customize your targeting. Yeah, that's what that is saying. Finally, we have what is called a universal selector. Okay. Universal selector, like we all know from the word universal, select everything. So before I said you can target the root, which is HTML, and it applies to everything on that page. But you can also use this universal selector to select every element on that page. In this case, it will not apply to the HTML root. It will only apply to all the elements on that page. The background of the element, your background of the page will not change. If you actually set background, it will not change. It will only apply to all the elements on that page. So if you have H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6, if you have P, if you have all of them, it will apply to them. And how do you do that? You only use star. So once you put a star and you now do curly braces and style and put the style, it will apply to every element on that page. Common mistake for everybody that we've seen so far is that some people, when they have written their style or everything, they style different elements. Remember, CSS is cascading style sheet. It cascades down. At the end of the whole style, because they now remember that, I want everything to have a small letter. They will now go and add star. At the end of the code, it will override everything you've written before. Then they will start debugging. My style sheet is not working. It is not working. This is supposed to be red, but it's not red. This is supposed to be blue. It's not blue. Why? I don't know. This code is because you actually use universal selector at the end of every other code that you've written before. It would override everything because it is universal. And because of the nature of CSS, it cascades down. So if you have defined something for an element above, and then you now define something under that still attached to that element, it will overwrite whatever you have defined before. So if you said your H2 should be green, and then you go down and do universal and do color blue, it will change everything, including the H2 to be blue, even though you have H2 to be blue.
So what the thing is, the universal selector can only come first, like on top. If, for example, let's take, for example, we don't want the, even let's say we want to allow the background be blue. After that background blue is where we would now have that universal selector.
Yeah, if you define background to be blue, then you can define your universal. But normally, your universal selector should be on top of your CSS code. If there is anything you want to apply to every element on the page, if there's anything that you want to be applied to every element of the page, it should be on top. It should be defined on top.
Does that include backgrounds?
Yes, it should be defined on top. Because the moment you go and rewrite it down, it's going to change some things.
I'm sorry, but from what you said earlier, you said if you want to target the head or something, for it to be like with a background CSS thing. And then you said the universal selector targets all the elements
on that page.
Not the head, right? Like
all the head, all the elements.
I don't know how you put it earlier.
Every element on the page. Yeah, not the root. The root,
hey, what the root you were talking about? So
the root is HTML. So the root the root element is the entire element, including the container that has all the elements. So this is the way CSS HTML is structured. There's a container. Okay, inside that container, you now have all the elements.
Right.
So when you target the root, it applies to both the container and the elements. When you target the universal, it doesn't apply to the container. It applies to the elements inside the container.
Right. So how does that differentiate when it comes to having a background as part of the container? And I don't know how.
So when you have your HTML first and you define a background,
right,
then you have your universal selector. That is fine. if you have your universal selector and you already defined a background color, you now have a container after the HTML and defined background. You are not going to see that container, the background for that container, because the universal selector that defines background for all the elements has already overshadowed, it has casted a shadow on that one. So these things are in layers. We will get to the second part of CSS where I will explain something called box sizing. That's how you now realize how these elements are laid on the page. They are laid as boxes on top of one another. So depending on how you define them, if you mistakenly define one before the other, the next one covers this one. And if care is not taken, you will not see what you defined before. So you must understand how to put them one after the other so that it cascades down and one does not cover the other one. Right now, the best I can do is to explain it right here. When we start using this thing as practice, we'll figure that out. Okay, there's something I'm going to tell you guys to install in the next class that will help you to preview CSS in the browser. Then you can see these boxes as they are laid on top of one another. So we're not jumping on. Trust me. So the universal selector selects every element on the page. The HTML selector selects the roots, and the root is both the elements on that page and the page itself, the container and the elements on it. But universal selector selects only the elements, not the page or not the roots. Okay. That being said, let's see how this works. So in this case, you have H1, H2, and a P element. Okay. Each of them has the text. And right now, we are saying target all these elements and style them red. So regardless of what element it is, regardless of their class, regardless of their ID, regardless of their attributes, attribute selectors, the moment you do star, it grab all of them. So you can see maybe before you already defined class title to be blue color. Maybe heading, you define it to be brown color, and this one to be blue or whatever you call it. But the moment you use this star, it overrides all of this. It overrides all of this thing. All of these CSS classes, IDs, and attributes. Does that make sense? That kind of nodding.
I'm still curious to see.
No.
I'm still curious.
My mind actually there. I battle myself and battle the whole thing.
I'm still curious to see the interaction between the boilerplate, that putting something as the head, and how it affects the universal selector thing. That whole dynamic.
Okay, you will see it when you write the code.
Yeah.
You will see that. Trust me. Hands on. When I don't swear from you, hands on. So this one is.
I want to hands off.
This one is it's a simple one. Trust me, it's a simple one. It's just a couple of texts that I want you guys to give different stylings to, and there are specific instructions on how I want you guys to do it. Okay. So if you go to the, where is it? The file, our downloaded file. You would see, where is it? And you do something. Okay. So if we go to the downloaded file, we have selectors folder. That's the one we want to do. You can see it's very simple, just 2 files there. So this one, we are going to do the same thing, bring it into your VS Code. Sorry, which file again? Selectors. Is this in lectures? It should be 6 point, let's see. 5.3 CSS selectors. Okay. 5.3 CSS selectors. So I drag mine in here. Let's see what it looks like. So this is the goal. This is the goal. We have a couple of texts that I want us to add style using the external formats. So we can see that we have the index.html and we have style.css. This is where you're going to have your style. Don't remove this. Okay, leave this as it is. Write your style after this instruction. So write your CSS below. Don't change the rules above. And this is this HTML. So the HTML has some instructions at each layer. So the first one here is that you can see that I already linked the CSS for you. You don't have to worry about linking it. You're just going to concentrate on writing the style. So the first one here is we have an H2 tag applying CSS to different parts of HTML. And then to do number 1, set the CSS for all paragraph tags to color red. So in other words, all the paragraph tags on this page, use your style sheet to set them to color red. I believe we can do that. I know. Then the next instruction says number 2, to do number 2, set the CSS for all elements with a class of notes. So I already added the class for you, notes. Okay. Now you have to target those notes, those class name that is notes, set them to have font size. So just copy this CSS code, font size to the 20 pixel. Okay. All of this is going to be inside the same file. Don't write any extra file. Everything, just write them after one another. Okay. Target each of those elements or the attribute or the ID or whatever I ask you to target and write the code there. That's for number 2. So the number 1 is to target element. Number 2 is to target a class. Number 3, you are targeting an ID. So there's an ID here called ID selector demo. Target that ID and style it to have color green. Okay. Number 4, you are going to target an LI, all LI elements that has the value attribute set to 4. So in this case, you are going to be doing attribute selector. So target all LI that has an attribute of value equals to 4. So in this case, you see this one has value equals 4. So target all the LI element that has this attribute and give them color blue. I like blue. Number 5. Number 5. Set all elements to have text align center. In other words, target all the elements on this page and give them this CSS, text align center. Any question? I'm not hearing you.
Is this take home?
Yeah, in the class. You have a take home separate. We are going to do this quickly and then I'll give you take home.
We're doing this now.
Yeah, now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for the next 15 minutes, you're going to do this and then we'll do the take home and everybody can go.
Okay, so Latas.
Yes. Sir.
Number 3. Let's start from number 3. Set to do 3. Set the CSS for the element with ID.
Of
ID selector demo. Okay, we are the one to do that ourselves.
I already add the ID for you. Look at it here. There's an ID here. Just grab that ID and give it color green. So target that ID and give it color green in your CSS. So all the code you guys will be writing is going to be inside this style.css. You are not doing nothing in the HTML. I already gave you all the class, the ID, and the attributes that you need. You only need to go to the question and then target whether if it is class, if it is ID, if it is attributes, target it and write a CSS code for it. If you want to go back to that presentation that I used, it is still there. You can use it to go back. If you want me to scroll to any of them, I can scroll to it for you. If you forgot how we did it, well, you already know how to target class, how to target ID, and then this is the one for the attribute selector. So you put the attributes that you are targeting inside the square braces, and then put the element, target the element for it, then define whatever I ask you to define. Remember to have your semicolon at the end of your style definition. Does that make sense, guys? Any question? So this is the goal. That's silence, eh? It's scary.
Because I'm wondering if, okay.
Silence is scary. Wonder, what are you?
Galatas,
Yes.
Galatas, if you go on break, leave us. Anyhow, we do.
No, we are here. Don't worry. We are here.
You know, need the me and my people.
If you want to collaborate, if you want to collaborate. I'm here. It doesn't matter. Collaborate. As you are not an example. It's not an exam. Coding naturally, we seek help, but collaborate to ask questions. Don't collaborate to look at other person's code, or just see how they write it. If you have any question, ask. I can answer you too here. It's fine.
Yeah.
Abule lawa. In the ghetto lawa.
Galatas, you seem to be having fun with this.
Don't worry. I could trust you guys. Trust Alain. It's you people that you not trust yourself. Me, I trust all of you that this thing is simple. It's just that you guys are still struggling with that fact that you are writing code. The moment you take it out of your mind that it's code, it becomes simple. Timo, did you want in classes, Jack?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm good.
So tell you, Aleni.
No weekend anymore. Don't tell me to bother me.
We cannot actually work. Okay, to a Monday actually. Hey, you want Monday, no?
No. I did bother. See, I did bother in confession.
All right. Small London. As you are adding your style, make sure you do the preview so that you will be seen as they change. Okay, so do the preview down. So while you are adding your style, you start seeing the changes one by one there. It makes sense like that, right? I forgot to start the timer. I'm going to start the timer for 15, and then we'll do it together. And see how this works. Yeah. So the first instruction or the first question says, I'm going to put, yeah. So the first question says, set CSS for all paragraph tags to color red. So I'll just copy the color red, copy them, go to my CSS, and then target all paragraphs and add them here. That's all. So because only number one is paragraph, that's why it applies to only number one. So let's go to the second one. Set CSS for all elements with a class of notes. So the class that has notes should be set the font size. In fact, let me just copy the font size. Font size of 20 pixels, the class of notes. So I go here, I'll target class of notes. Remember, when you're targeting class, you have a dot notation and then the name of the class, and you write your CSS. So the CSS name is font size to be 20 pixels. Okay. So we've set all of them to 20 pixels. All of them has class note, I think. Then the next one says, set the CSS for all elements with an ID of ID selector demo to color green. So I copy the ID name, come here, target the ID. Remember, for ID, we have target with an arch and hash notation, and then we open this, and then we set the color to what? green. So that's the third question. Set all the element that has an ID of ID selector demo to color green. We've done that. That's all. And then number 4 says set CSS for all LI elements, the list elements that have value attribute set to 4. So the value attribute set to 4, we are targeting all of these, which are list elements, and set them to color blue. So we'll go here, list element first, open your square braces, put in the name of the value equals for the attributes, open your CSS curly braces, and set the color to blue. Banner blue, yes. So number 5, the last one. It says set all elements to have text aligned center. So in this case, we are targeting all elements. Which of the selectors are we using here, guys?
Asterisk.
Star.
What's the name of star and asterisk? Universal selector. So universal selector for that one, because it says all elements. So we're going to use universal selector, and then we'll add that. So it's centered everything at once. Okay, and that is it.
Didn't you say universal selectors should come first?
Well, it should come first. The only reason why we can have it last here is that it has only text aligned. Let's say we want to have a default color of yellow. You can see what I'm trying to talk about here now. So it changes a lot of things to yellow here for us. But if it leaves up, it's not going to affect them. It will initially be yellow, but once we now set all of this afterwards, it will not change them to yellow. So look at the difference. Where is it?
Oh, so it only changed those that were black.
Those that were black were changed. The other ones did not change.
The ones that are not draggable, Abby.
So if I go back here, okay, now I'm wrong. What's it doing? Okay, so it changes regardless of the position. Now I have to go and Google this. That's not what I used to know. I'm sorry if I misled you guys.
Because it seemed to have changed only the ones with default that weren't defined.
Yes, so let me see what's going on here.
Maybe we have some dragables there, so those ones were not affected now. Just like
well, it should affect them if it's at the end. So if it's at the end, right here, it should affect. Oh wait, I didn't remove this. Wait. Okay, so put it here. It's the same thing. Okay, so
right, but that's if it's at the bottom. Can you take it to the end and let's see?
It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
It's showing the same thing. So there's something like
cut it to the bottom. Sorry, one more thing.
Yeah, just so we cut it to put it here.
Right, it only changes those that weren't predefined.
So it's not changing the ones that the colors are already defined. So I need to find out why. Probably something I don't know or something that changed. I have to find out. My belief was that it should, if it's at the bottom, it overwrites everything. If it's on top, every other thing that comes after should overwrite it. That's my belief. That's what I used to know, but we'll see. I just want to test something. If I use HTML, it still works the same way. Okay. Oh, wait. Is it because we are not in the browser?
No. I think it's what JMBM said. The ones that we're not having specific,
That's what I'm saying, but that's not the way it should behave. I would try this again in the browser and we'll see. In fact, let me try it in the browser right now. Where is my live preview?
Okay, if you say so.
Well, that's what I believe. That's what I believe it should. That's what I believe it should be. But let's see. Live preview. Do I not have live preview on this? Web preview server. It's the same thing. Okay, I'll find out again. Sorry if that was misleading. So it looks like the universal selector only affects. Wait, let's just hold it like that. I will make my research and come back with this next class. There's something wrong here. I have to find out. That is completely different from what I know about universal selectors, but we'll see. Okay, guys. So for this one, I would leave it back as universal selector. Take this out. Okay, so wherever it is right now, it works. So the location of this universal selector does not matter right now. What is important is that it applies to all of them. So it centers all the elements here. Now, every other thing that doesn't work, as I said, I would make a finding on that and come back with the solution or with the correct interpretation next class. So any question on this one, guys? Any question?
No, sir.
No question. So we'll have the take home so that you guys can do that at home and come back with the solution next class. So this is going to be the take home.
A powerful now. This is 2 plus 2 and further math assignment. You have brought box now.
Don't worry now. You know I will give you the box if I've given you box. What we are interested in this class is color. The box I will give. You go paint time for me. Okay?
So
this is going to be the output of the assignment. It's called color vocab. So we're going to be learning Spanish with color in this assignment. How are we going to be doing that? We will locate the file 5. I assume it should be 5.3. Let's see. 5.4. So we're going to locate file 5.4, and I'm going to show it here quickly. Just give me this last few minutes to explain this, and then we'll go. I know we are tired. Today is
why is folder 0.2 always missing in all our class documents? We have 4.1 and 4. Where is 4.2?
That's for the lecturer.
It's not good now. No, they do too like it now.
It's for the lecturer. It's for the lecturer. So this one, we are going to be working on this one at home. This is the goal, like I showed in that slide. The goal is to paint each of these boxes based on the color that we have here. So here, there are instructions here, but I'll quickly go through it. So the first one, we are learning color in Spanish, like I said. So I already add those images for you, which are the boxes, and the boxes already have the colors. The only thing you are adding for me is the text on those boxes. It's a simple exercise, actually. So this text, rojo, azul, anaranjado, verde, those are Spanish words for the colors, the red, the blue, and all that, orange. So you look at the name. So look at here. All code should be written in your CSS file. So you are only going to add, I didn't create a CSS file for you this time, but I already add a link for you. So you need to create that CSS file yourself, the style sheet. When you create it, you're going to start here. So the first question is create a CSS file and incorporate it as an external style sheet. Okay. Use CSS to style each of the color titles to meaning. Okay, so for each of them, there's a box here, which is in the image. The image for the first one is red, red.png, and the alternative is red. So which means red is rojo in Spanish. So you're going to style this text, this H2 text in red, rojo. Azul is the blue one. So blue.png is a blue box, and the alt text is blue. So you're going to style this H2 heading as blue. As a matter of fact, let's preview. So right now, all the headers are black, but we already have the colors, okay? So you just style the text according to the color, right? That's all. It's a simple one.
All right.
And now because it's too simple, I want to add something to it. You come and recite, you come and recite these colors in Spanish in next class.
Recite it.
No problem.
Rojo, azul, anjado, verde, amarillo.
Amarillo is common.
Amarula, do you not amarula like that? Oh, God.
You get amarula, you get. And azuri in Italy is blue, so I think it's
amarula.
Azuri means blue in Italian.
Azul now drink too.
I know it's Azuri and Azul. So
azul is
blue. Azuri in Spanish. I mean,
that blue alcoholic drink, very expensive. What's it?
You sleep is already in your nonsense. And Azure is blue.
Only Azure.
Azure.
I know now. Azure Obi, you know, say na their national team.
Go to bed now.
Mojo, Azure is this expensive drink.
The Azure is color. It's very expensive drink.
Julie, lost.
Are we done? Thank you so much.
Yes, good night.
All right, no problem.
Okay, guys. That comes to the end of today's class. Sorry if I hurt you guys. I don't mean to. It's one of those.
Ogalatas.
You know who I muted? Yes.
I'm going to have
to send the solution of the last class.
I'm going to need
the solution of the last exercise we did.
I know.
The solution of the last exercise we did.
Is it the rest?
There now?
Oh, the one we did here?
Yeah, the one we did here. Yeah.
This one, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So sorry if I hurt your feelings, guys. It's one of those things. It happens.
What's the explanation for the half of the class? You can stop because the class is over.
I hope this is not going to be a geometric progression. So we started from.
You can stop recording, Ogalatas.
Yeah. So wait first.